Is 1950. And we're almost 100 years old. Well, as a town, that is. And we've just now started coming into our own. We fought, we dug in, and we had a few tears along the way. And we've experienced another world war, prohibition, and even a worldwide depression that rocked us to the core. But we showed the world what we're really made of. And we're here, and, well, knowing what we know now, we're not going anywhere. Hi, I'm your host, Kathy Dice, and the year is 1950. And with our heroes coming home from far-off lands, they brought with them some of their experiences from distant places. And one of those places was the South Pacific influences of the tiki hut. And, well, Holly wasn't about to be left behind in that experience. And as you can see, we're out here on location again this week. And behind me is where it used to be. And it was right here it was an icon of our old girl for many years. Talking, of course, about Hawaiian Gardens Motel. Some of us may still remember some good times out here, and, well, some of us, let's just say you might remember some good times, but the food was off the charts. And not to mention the memory maker itself for some of us was the Electric Crater, where we danced the night away and conjured up thoughts of youthful antics. Oh, let's see what we can conjure up and uncover and take a look at this week's adventure as we go inside the magic of Holly.
Inside the Magic of Holly is brought to you in part by the Village of Holly, Michigan, since 1865, your place to call home, and by the Downtown Development Authority, since 1982, driving Holly into the future.
In 1950, things were still pretty unsettled in the world as we went from World War II right into the Korean War and the Vietnam War without even a break. And yes, once again, you guessed it, the caliber of the people in our little slice of heaven were right in the mix of things once again. Thanksgiving Day in 1953, something amazing happened that would influence the way we broke the silence in our homes. It wasn't the first one, but it soon became one of the biggest, well, at least for a while. WTAC first took to the airwaves, and it wouldn't be long before these faceless voices were part of our everyday lives. Johnny Cole, Peter C. Cavanaugh, Bob Dell, Pete Fat Cat Flanders, and so many more. They would take us through the day and entertain us right through the weekend. Of course, in the beginning, they were like TV and would sign off at midnight with the national anthem. Now, WTAC was actually located in Flint, about 20 miles up the road, but they sure would have their fingers in Holly, playing dances and even helping to organize the concerts at Mount Holly. And 1955 brought about a new president, the nation's only five-star general, Dwight Eisenhower. By 1955, we had a new thing happening in our backyard, the suburban spread. Now, that's not a bad thing, mind you, but we had this new thing called a subdivision. And since the end of World War II, our road system had made big improvements, and for the most part, everybody had a car to drive, and with that came the big push to get out of the city and into a little less hectic way of life called the suburbs. Yep, that was what we grew into, a suburb. Oh, and people loved it. We grew, boy, and howdy did we grow. Almost overnight, we had a subdivision. The first one in Holly was on Bevins Lake. Something else happened in 1955. Seems a group of visionaries, interestingly enough, the same ones who built the subdivision, had a thought to build a mountain. Oh, not just a bunch of dirt and rocks, but a special one. One that people could actually strap 2 wooden sticks onto their feet and in a dramatic way slide down it. Well, it didn't take long for this to catch on, and before you knew it, Holly once again became a quiet little gold mine of not only adventure, but an actual destination of fun. Yes, I'm talking about Mount Holly, started by the Hanks brothers this year. Now, you can't have a resort like Mount Holly without having a place to stay close by. So from the feel of swishing down the face of the Swiss Alps to the warm, lazy, windswept feel of the Hawaiian Islands in the same day, well, back then that was quite a stretch of the imagination. But not for our little lady. No, sir, she was able to pull it off with the building of a place called the Hawaiian Gardens and something called the Electric Crater. Many of us worked there growing up, cleaning the island-themed huts, washing dishes in the massive kitchen, or even serving drinks of the exotic flavor to some of Holly's finest. Well, it didn't take long for this little idea to rise to national fame right along with Mount Holly. Today, we can only remember this endeavor fondly with pictures and stories from people who were there. We also saw the birth of something that would help us keep track of our music. It was called Billboard's Top 100, and the first #1 hit was, are you ready? Gene Autry and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Well, from then on, music would be ranked each week. I told you things were happening, and they were happening pretty fast in our little section of the world. In 1958, we had another new toy to play with as we grew. Well, it wasn't right in Holly, but like radio, it would have a big influence on our lives. WJRT, Channel 12, went on the air October 12th and brought us programs like Mr. Magic, Romper Room, Popeye, and of course those soap operas that helped our moms get through their day. Back then, like radio, it too went off the air at midnight. Sometimes playing after the national anthem was something called High Flight. By the 60s, we were rocking. No, literally. On Saturday nights, we were rocking the house in a new venture just east of town called Mount Holly, with names like Seeger, Grand Funk, and this Mysterians guy who signed his name with a question mark. Oh, we had some struggles with the Vietnam War that was still brewing to a frenzy. Well, our country's not done shedding tears just yet, but on Saturday nights, we got to let down, and boy, did we ever. Now, when we come back, we will take a look at some of those events and even some of the people from our hometown who made their mark on their way to history.
Oh, man, hippie love lifestyle. 109 Battle Alley is where it's at, man. No matter if you're looking for handmade, all-natural bath and body skin care, or wild, far-out clothing guaranteed to let your spirit soar with color. From hippie-style clothing to shoes, and all things for the hippie lifestyle, man, including incense. Trying to buy for that special hippie? We got gift certificates too, man, to help with that. Far out, right? Come in and see Nicole and see how hippie love lifestyle can help you keep on trucking. Hippie love lifestyle, man. 109 Battle Alley in historic downtown Holly, Michigan. Right on.
From the moment you walk in, you know there's something different. Your eyes flow left, then right, then left again, filling your mind with a plethora of possibilities. Pigeon in the Parlor, an unusual name, agreed. However, once you walk through the door, you'll see why it's the place to fuel the mind. From chalk paints to antiques, crafts, and exquisite home decor to choose from, Pigeon in the Parlor will feed the possibilities. Come in, look around, and see why Pigeon in the Parlor is the place where ideas grow. Oh, and don't forget to ask us how we got our name. Pigeon in the Parlor, 110 South Saginaw Street in historic downtown Holly, Michigan.
Vintage Industrial Uniques is not only Holly's 2016 Business of the Year, it's also your portal for one-of-a-kind custom vintage art, handmade by renowned artisan Jeremy. From steampunk accessories to that one-of-a-kind special accent for your home, 2 levels of intrigue and awe await as you casually stroll through its unique ambiance of one-of-a-kind artworks. Oh, and don't forget to get yourself one of the best pretty smiles. Those are priceless and always free. Vintage Industrial Uniques, 109 South Saginaw in historic downtown Holly, Michigan. Since 1982, the Downtown Development Authority has made things happen behind the scenes. Things like Ladies' Night Out, holidays, and downtown beautification projects, and even the fireworks on the 4th of July. Developments we take for granted every day. The Downtown Development Authority, driving Holly into the future.
1960 brought in a new president, and along with it, a new feeling called Camelot. Oh, the world was still boiling from the 50s turmoil. The Korean conflict, as it was called back then, was fading, but this place on the other side of the world, well, she was heating up ever so quietly in a small country called Vietnam. Seems like we went right from one into the other without even taking a breath. Well, needless to say, Holly was right there to answer the call. Only this time, we had something called the draft that didn't ask for volunteers, but used a lottery system to call our young men into harm's way. And through no fault of his own, John F. Kennedy was forced to keep our men and women over in Vietnam longer than we needed to be there. Americans feared that the hidden military-industrial complex had taken its hold on our country, and we just wanted our troops back home again. We lost this president in 1963, and through television, America was a witness to a live coup d'etat as this hidden power his predecessor had warned us about took control of what America was actually fighting for. And Holly, through our newly acquired minds for civil engineering, has a brand new high school. From a swamp and marshes to the hallowed grounds of gridiron warriors, showing their skills on any given Friday night, and even a paved track with baseball fields. Well, today we call it the Carl Richter Community Center, but to some of us, well, it will always be the high school. Okay, I have to be honest, it wasn't all peaches and cream through the 60s, but we made some pretty big leaps. Car production was off the charts as we bought up our rides by the thousands. And Holly was expanding. Our population was up to 3,345 people in 1960. In 65, you could feel it rumbling. You could feel the spark in the air of something happening in our little town. Oh, it was exciting. Contests were forming of the pie-eating, beard-growing, and grease-pole-climbing nature. A parade was high priority, and yes, even jail, for not having a permit to grow a beard, and we even had a husband-calling contest. Merchants, police, and even the fire departments got in on the act, and lo and behold, we had us a celebration right downtown on Main Street. We actually closed the town to celebrate 100 years of our place called home. This new thing called rock and roll had taken birth and was growing like wildfire. New names were on the horizon as we danced to the bebop with names like Big Bopper, Elvis Presley, Buddy Holly, and more. But Holly wasn't about to be outdone. We had our own rock stars. They called themselves in 1967 the Esquires. And they made their debut in a little garage on Hubble Drive and jumped on this thing called rock and roll. 4 guys from our own backyard, Rob Namowitz, Jim Strigo, Pat Woods, and Mickey Johnston. In 67, we had 3 channels on this magic box in our homes: ABC, CBS, and NBC. But on Saturday, and the time is 11:30 a.m., You rush home from playing with friends to turn on channel WJBK-TV2 because your favorite horror host is about to show a spooky or cheesy horror film and you can't wait. The host is Sir Graves Ghastly, and this scenario was real life for many kids and adults who grew up watching Sir Graves. Close up the curtains, snuggle up to the TV. The Mummy, Dracula, and The Creature from the Black Lagoon, of course, were just some of the movies that he would host in our dreams for later after dark. Of course, after that, we wouldn't sleep much that night, but while we were watching, our world was right there. In 1969, the world literally held its breath. Something awesome, something so unique. Eyes from around the world were literally glued to any TV set they could find, as a jerky, black and white figure from our world slowly descended from a man-made vessel onto another planet for the first time since the dawn of man. July 29th, 1969, we became, for the first time, extraterrestrials in another world when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin stepped foot on the moon. Stop and think about that for a minute. We've only been a country for a little over 150 years, and our town has only been in existence for a little over 100 years. And it's only been a little less than 70 years since our first powered flight into the air. Kind of makes you wonder if man had a little help along the way? Or are we just that smart? Oh, here, a little hint. That strange weather balloon crash out in the desert by a little place called Roswell? Yeah, that's only been 22 years ago, but I'm sure that didn't have anything to do with our technological advances, now did it? But I'll let you come to your own thoughts on that. By the 70s, things were in full swing, and music, of course, was right at the forefront. We had bands like Grand Funk, Terry Knight and the Pack, Bob Seger, and Question Mark and the Mysterians were filling the airwaves, and radio stations like WTAC, WTRX, and CKLW. But there was another venue that brought them all to Holly, an obscure little place that just sat empty during the summer, just waiting to make memories and filling our hearts with smiles to last a lifetime. Mount Holly. Now, we mentioned this fun-filled place before, but during the off-season of summer, it sat idle. That was, of course, until a promoter from WTAC, Peter C. Cavanaugh, remember him? He thought it would be a good idea to jam out on the weekend, and what a thought that was. Now, some of us remember this Peter C. Cavanaugh guy as just a DJ, a faceless voice on the little 6-transistor box that had this groovy sound coming out of it. But he was more. Oh, much, much more than that. His influence in music carries on even today, bringing names like Seeger, Farner, Berry, and yes, even Holly's own Namowitz to the forefront of music influence. Mount Holly, Sherwood Forest were just a few of the venues Mr. Peter C. Cavanaugh organized for us. Once again, Holly was not going to be left in the dust. Groups like August Train and Magic Mushroom filled the stage at the high school, and even a battle of the bands would cause young people to dance the night away on Friday nights. Magic Mushroom even opened for a new talent by the name of Alice Cooper. But there was another group as well. They were called the Keeley Brothers, along with Dennis Duncan, and played all over the Flint and Holly area in the mid-70s. Even opened for George Santana in San Francisco on July 4th, 1978. Yes, like I said, Holly had its own rock stars of the day, and they will forever be an influence in the glory days of Holly's contribution to the worldwide music scene. In 1974, somebody had an idea. Now, knowing our little town as we've learned, this isn't anything out of the ordinary. But this one lady by the name of Ardith Reagan was ahead of her time, And it happened right here at home in our own backyard. Now, a couple of weeks ago, you heard me mention a guy by the name of Charles Dickens. Well, he was a writer in jolly old England, and he wrote something called The Christmas Carol in 1836, among many other things. And you remember back when we mentioned this lady by the name of Carrie Nation, who came through Holly and pretty much whooped up the whole place and left her mark on our little piece of earth? Yeah, I know. I didn't know they were related either, but, well, our writer, once again, has made one of his weird connections, and, well, there you go. Well, we managed to make a party out of their deeds. Now, it seems this lady I mentioned a few minutes ago was a teacher, and she loved history, and both on a world level and actually our own history of where we live. So she and a few others got together and thought it would be a cool idea to have some fun and maybe teach some people about the past. So in 1974, they created two festivals. One was what is now the Holly Dickens Festival, celebrated every year between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And by the way, we hold a record for that event as the longest running continuous Dickens Festival in the United States. Pretty cool, huh? Oh, and the other? Well, we couldn't leave Carrie out of the picture now, could we? So, bam, we called it. Go ahead, guess. That's right, the Carrie Nation Festival. It was held in September every year for almost 16 years. Today, we still acknowledge our past with what is called holidays, only we've kind of expanded it just a little. Not only do we salute Carrie Nation and her adventure through our little burg, but we go all the way back to our beginning and celebrate our founders as well. Our world was rocked in 1975. On June 20th, people stopped swimming in the lakes, and kids even refused to be alone in the bathtubs in our homes, all due to a large shark on the movie screens. Jaws had infiltrated any and all bodies of water, no matter where it was. If you were floating in it, you heard the music, and that's all it took to make you ever more cautious when you can't see into the water. The 70s were a growing time for most of Holly, and a change too in some areas, which may not have been the change we wanted. But like the phoenix she is, our old girl just keeps on rising from the ashes. In 1977, on May 3rd, actually, we lost one of our icons to a strange fire. Well, I say strange because the origin was never determined, but there was a little unrest among some of the workers there that, well, we'll just leave it at that and let history keep her secret. The Grinnell Brothers Piano Factory, which stood in Holly since 1910, burned to the ground under some, let's just say, strange circumstances. It was a scary fire, one that actually burned for weeks. Years of varnish and glue-soaked timber burnt so hot it actually melted glass in some of the nearby houses. Well, now, at the time, Holly only had a volunteer fire department, but in true Holly fashion, they battled the blaze with all the vigor of retaliation against a spewing dragon. It was so big, fire departments from Fenton and Linden were called in to help. Thankfully, no one lost their lives. But even though they fought valiantly, the old brick-faced building succumbed to her fiery demise, but not without a fight. And though she was mortally wounded, she would not go quietly. For weeks after the flames had diminished, she puffed her billows of smoke as she finally lost the effort of her last breath of life. Even today, if you listen on a warm summer night, faint hints of the past can still be felt from the iconic stature of what she once was in her glory days. It seems that our history likes to enjoy a rerun from time to time. A couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that the Holly Hotel, then called the Hearst Hotel, had burned on January 19th, 1913. Oh, not to the ground. It was actually just a small fire for that time, but it took off the front porch and a few other outside things. But then it was still kind of a major thing, as we didn't have the kind of equipment for fighting fires that we do today. Yep, it was pretty much bucket brigades and volunteers that fought for this piece of history. Well, would you look at that? There's that word again. Well, 65 years later, right down to the day and even the hour, this staple of our town mysteriously took to the flames once again. Only this time, even though we still only had a volunteer fire department, we had better equipment. Oh yeah, it was bigger than the first fire. It was so big our firefighters fought for 2 days this time to win the battle. She was left war-torn and ragged, and, well, we even discussed tearing it down, losing another part of our history to the shadows and memories of another time. Well, as you can see, we didn't tear it down. In fact, when it was rebuilt by George Kutlenius, the current owner, he drew on original drawings from 1890 and first-hand memories of local historians to make this old beauty queen into what she is today. Now, I've played the Comedy Shop many times over the years as a comedian, and, well, I can assure you they even brought some of the old residents with them when they rebuilt this beautiful icon of our town, complete with Mr. Hearst's cigar smoke, all the way up to the old Indian and of course the lady in white. Today, it's the hub of ambiance and exquisite dining, even hosting a presidential dinner when our president at the time, George H.W. Bush, came to town on a train in 1992. I wonder if he got to see the old patrons that used to live there too. We've come to 1980, and we've celebrated our first 100-year birthday as a town, and already, at only 100 years old, we've put our mark on this globe. We've kicked this thing called rock and roll into high gear, and, well, even hosted some big names up on the big hill made by the dream and the hard work of two guys. Well, from our inception to a lot of the things some of us, well, actually lived, we have managed to uncover a few tidbits of our enchanted home, but we are nowhere near close to being done. Join me next time, won't you, as we reveal what's behind the curtain and we go inside the magic of Holly. I'm Kathy Dice. Till next time.